The sitting is resumed. Honourable member for Microsoft Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to lend my voice and my support to this shipping domestic vessels legislation. And I do so on today, the 7th of June, which is being observed as World Oceans Day. Normally, World Oceans Day is on the 8th of June. The world today will celebrate today, will commemorate it today. And I start in this place, sir, because Barbados has for some time, certainly since 2018, but well before then, has for some time been giving visibility to the question of how we structure our economy, what makes up our economy and our well-being, how are we able to move from this notion or to understand ourselves not necessarily as a small island developing state, but as what we call a large ocean state. And it doesn't mean that we ignore or neglect that we are small, that we are an island, certainly that we are well in our process of developing and development. But it means that it is about what are the opportunities rather than looking at the limitations of being small, of being an open economy, of being a taker of price on international policy. Rather than looking just at those things, how do we look at the opportunity that is afforded to us by the ocean, vast as it is around us, and by the unique fact, sir, that we have a particular position in the Caribbean Sea and in the Atlantic Ocean, but also that we are the first port of call leaving the coast of Africa and heading in this direction. And really, it is that fact has been obviously part of our historical development. It is the reason that Barbados as a country, as a nation, really came to develop the way it came to develop. It is because it was determined by the colonizers that Barbados should be set up as the model colony. We want to show that all of this money that we are making the Crown spend in England is yielding something. We have been able to civilize the savages. Look how well we have done with this island, Barbados. And so the position of the country as it lies in the ocean has historically meant a lot. Where it lies, where we lie geographically has historically meant a lot. It has been the foundation of how we have developed and why and when and where. But it is now time to see this positioning as an opportunity. And so we say, look, what is it that the ocean can give us? How is it that in a conversation about sustainable industrial development, which the ministry that I have the honor to help lead is tasked with, where does the ocean sit in that conversation? How are we leveraging that opportunity? And so, sir, I consider that this bill is about order and opportunity. It is about order and opportunity. And I want us to understand that the first is a necessary precursor to the second. Sometimes I'm not sure that we understand that. We consider that we can thrive in the midst of chaos. Some will thrive in the midst of chaos. Survival of the fittest, Lord of the Rings, and all the other stories that we know about. Lord of the Flies, sorry, not the Rings. The Rings is another story. Lord of the Flies and all of these scenarios in which is about survival of the fittest. But what happens when chaos takes over? The people who are less willing to elbow each other out of the way, to hit one another with a stick in order to get through, those people are the ones who stand not to gain from the opportunity. And so I consider that, as in many other areas in which this government, having come to service since 2018, as in most other areas, we realize that we need to bring some order to some sectors in order to create and foster opportunity for everyone. And so I think that the bill, it is so tremendously thorough and really covers everything that one could think might be relevant to creating an industry from our oceans and from the shipping sector and from everything else that this legislation covers. But it does seek to create order. It seeks to create order with respect to how these small vessels are operated. It seeks to create order, sir, with respect to things like the abandonment of vessels and derelict vessels. And perhaps this is one of the areas that stood out for me, because it seems to me that there are so many sectors across the country where the question of how we treat assets and how we make sure that what we generate is well discarded. That might seem like a simple thing, but it is something that plagues us in so many ways. I know that the Honourable Minister responsible for the environment will probably talk at length about this matter. The fact that we have challenges with drainage and with flooding is in many ways linked to how we dispose of what we consume collectively as a people. The state has a responsibility in that. People have a responsibility in that. And I think that this question of how we bring about good order as a platform for creating opportunity is one, sir, that we will return to over and over again, sector by sector, conversation by conversation, bill by bill, legislation by legislation, because that has to be the structure, that has to be the framework, order and opportunity. And so the legislation covers many things, and I will not even attempt to speak to even the majority of them. But I want to speak to the ones that show me that the minister and team have clearly thought through what is necessary to bring good order so that all can have opportunity in this space. And so yes, it does speak to the issue of abandonment of vessels, and we have this issue with derelict vessels. We have an issue with derelict homes. We have issues with poorly discarded materials. And all of these stand to disrupt the way that we manage our natural environment and the extent to which those natural resources can serve us well. If we contaminate the water table, the very water that we have to consume, by poorly discarding or poorly getting rid of the items that we consume, we are only hurting ourselves. And so there needs to be order in order for there to be opportunity. Sir, just before this government came to service in 2018, we sat down and did quite a bit of work on what would we want, based on consultations with the people of Barbados, what is necessary for us to bring about a green, sustainable, green and blue, sustainable industrial transition. That is what the Ministry of Industry is concerned with and is rolling out. And on page 55 of that 2018 manifesto of the Barbados Labour Party, one of the things that we considered was necessary was training in maritime and seafaring skills and other related skills to be able to build out an industry around the ocean. What are the different industries and areas of work and opportunities that can exist as a result of that? And sir, this legislation, I do not want us to overlook the part of the legislation that speaks quite squarely to exactly that ambition. Exactly that ambition of making sure that we have the necessary training and the training structure to be able to make room for all of these areas of work from which Barbadians stand to benefit. And so, sir, I think that sometimes we expect things to happen in a certain way and look a certain way and take place in a certain place. And there are those of us that might not expect that the training in maritime and seafaring skills and all of the commitment to foster that training and that preparation for young people in Barbados, one might not expect it in legislation like this. And yet, here it is. And so that Part 6 of the legislation speaks very thoroughly to the issue of training, certification, licensing, and registration. It talks about the issuance of Barbados Small Vessel Learner's Permit. It talks about certificates of competency. The different areas like boat masters, boat technicians, boat manufacturers, approved marine surveyors. Sir, this is industry. It goes on to look at public educational or training institutions, private marine training schools, institutions, and instructors. Sir, this is the Maritime and Seafaring Academy that is spoken to in the 2018 manifesto. It may not sit in the place that we may have expected it. And it may not be structured in the way that we expect it, but this legislation clearly provides the framework for all of these certifications to be accredited, to be acknowledged, so that people know if I go and I learn how to do a particular thing, it is made visible, it is recognized, it is validated, it means something. I can take it somewhere and work. I can build a business from it. I can build out an industry from it. I can employ my neighbor in it. I can employ my friends in it. Sir, this is the sustainable industrial transition that we have been waiting for. And I have to congratulate the team that worked on this for being able to make such a significant contribution to growth and industry in the country in a sector that people might not really expect you to be able to do it in. But sir, I want to acknowledge that this is a promise made and a promise kept. Because not everything will be a brand new school on a hill. Not everything will be the build out of an institution. Some things create the enabling environment for people to feel and know that their contribution means that they'll be able to participate in the economic growth of this country. Sir, the legislation also speaks to a small vessel industry support fund. So this is not just about creating the order. This is not just about making it so that operators of jet skis and other small vessels and pleasure craft and so on do the right thing, which we want them to do. But it's also making sure that we support their industry and their effort so that in cases where people need support to be able to build out business, grow business around the sector or the area of work that they have chosen. That this legislation creates a small vessel industry support fund to help them do that. I've seen cases, sir, where there are operators of some of these small vessels who have not sought and gotten the relevant insurance, or who, having done their best to get what they felt was the right insurance, then have an episode or an issue, some sea swells or some storm surge or something that they didn't expect. Turns out that the insurance they thought they had does not apply in this case, and then their asset has no value. And so I look forward to seeing how the Small Vessel Industry Support Fund is able to provide some security and some opportunity for those in the sector who want to grow their business and who want to continue to invest in their assets. Sir, the legislation speaks as well to a small vessel and water sports community investment scheme. One of the things that we know about Barbados is that there are communities where seafaring and coastal activities form the nucleus of how people live. Whether it is fisheries, whether it is people who operate jet skis and other kinds of vessels. And this small vessel and water sports community investment scheme and making way for it is a way for communities to come together. When this government launched the trust loan program, that was very much what was contemplated. That clusters of people, friends, neighbors in communities would be able to come together, pool their resources, attract other resources, allow Barbadians to invest in something that would bring a return, so that in so doing, we can also grow community resilience. And this legislation, sir, allows for that. Sir, the green and blue industrial transition that is intended, that is underway for Barbados, is not just a notion. It is not fanciful. It is something that we contemplate in the draft Sustainable Industrial Development Policy, wherein we put in one place, once and for all, the vision and the intent for a new industry, a new industrial pathway for Barbados. Why is that necessary? Sir, because the old ways of doing industry, let me put it in such a basic way, the old manufacturing model, the old way of growing commodities, having bulk commodities and shipping them away for people to then add value and make the real money. That model, which is a part of our history, which part of our history meant that Barbadians were completely disenfranchised from their own productive efforts and capacity, we know that that model does not create well-being. It does not create wealth. It only creates exploitation. We've lived that for centuries, sir. What we now have an opportunity to do is to apply innovation and technology to a new industrial transformation. In fact, sir, it is not something that we are choosing to do. It is the way the world has gone. No longer are we looking to export a bulk commodity and say, here is our cotton, here is our sugar. Have it and create value from it on the backs of our labor. We're done with that model, sir. And so the new green industrial transition means that we have to look at what we have. We have to look at how we build out marine protected areas, so that while we are investing in fisheries applying technology and digital transformation to the fisheries sector, applying new technology to how vessels are able to move, how vessels are able to themselves integrate new technology. While we do that, we also have to make sure that we're protecting those spaces, because if we don't, it's only so long we will have anything to fish. It's only so long that we will have a coastal area that people want to come and enjoy. And so the management of marine protected areas must be a part of that. The extent to which we are able to invest in the size of the fleet and the nature of the fleet that is engaged in fisheries. The extent to which we are able to bring in marine product processing facilities and operations. Sir, you will have seen the Food Science Center, where BIDC, the Ministry of Industry, has built out a space that allows people to increase their production, to come to scale to suit exports, but not only that, to be able to source inputs that are procured in a central way by BIDC, by Export Barbados, to be able to source those inputs so that it is economical, there are cost savings for them, for these producers, in sourcing those inputs. They're able to enjoy and take advantage of some of the best technology in taking whatever, creating, whether it is pepper sauce or whether it is pharmaceuticals and botanicals, being able to have a space where they can start where they are, but where we can help them reach scale. We do that too for marine product processing facilities. So not just items that come from the land, but people who are working on producing things from seaweed and sargassum, sea moss, and so on. And if people have not yet seen or experienced or read about what we are able to start doing at the Food Science Center, I encourage Barbadians to do that. Because here is where there is opportunity. There is literal space and a framework, a pathway to get the inputs that are needed. Because, sir, when we are looking to source materials, we're battling with everybody. Barbados, as a small island state, is battling with everybody. Barbados, as a large ocean state, is seeing it as an opportunity to be able to help people source and procure what they need in order to create and develop industry from the ocean that is all around us. But sir, I also want to say that the Ministry of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology also considers that data is a sector, is an industry. And that the information that we get from what is happening in the ocean, from what lives in the ocean, from the ecosystems in the ocean, from who passes by us, by our shores, who comes to our shores, that information is currency, sir, is as good as money. And you all remember for Christchurch East Central, Perk Tupman has said that because he likes to hear about money. But it is currency. That information that we get helps us understand how we might innovate here on these shores. And so being able to do the kind of ocean monitoring that we need to do, the kind of bathymetric surveying that others often have to come and do for us, that is also an industry. And we consider that being able to build skills in that, in data science related to the ocean, in data analytics, these things may sound far away. But I want the country to know through you, sir, that we are already here. We are already in the future, and time is not waiting for us. And so a lot of the work that you will see emerging from the ministry has to do not just with how we develop the blue industry, but also how we use the information that we're getting from vessels. Once we equip them with that information, how are we using that to build industry out? And to be able to create opportunities for young Barbadians and for those who might come to our shores. So, sir, order and opportunity. This piece of legislation is perhaps one of the best examples of how these things work together to take us on the road that we would want to follow towards our own development. So, sir, with those words, I want to say that I highly commend this legislation, and I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I just want to take the baton from the Member of Parliament for St. Michael, South Central, and to add my voice. I don't know if it's on. It's on? And to add my voice, of course, with hers, as we celebrate World Oceans Day tomorrow, the 8th of June, and to say Happy World Oceans Day to all those who are in that particular sphere. Mr. Speaker, sir, the theme for World Ocean Day is Awaken New Depths. And I think it is only appropriate and highly so that on the cusp of a maxim that speaks to the awakening of new depths, that we are able to bring legislation with the cellulose training program, with legislation that speaks to the build out of a sector that was for years crying out for order, as the Member of Parliament that spoke before me, that cried out for capacity, the building out of an industry, that cried out for to be part of a tangible state and to be able to help us with our sustainable development goals. And I want to say that this theme, Awakening of New Depths, is timely, it is appropriate, and it really sets the tone for the type of legislation that was brought to us earlier today in this honourable chamber. Mr. Speaker, sir, we talk about training, and who are we speaking about in this sector? We are talking about the jet sea operators, those in the pleasure cruise industry. Some may be identified as wave runners, the cabin crews and the cruisers, catamarans, of course, and those in the game fishing industry. And I even want to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is now one of the biggest industries outside the fishing industry as it relates to having, to be able to generate much foreign exchange. It is a multi-million-dollar industry, I must say, and every year I associate myself with those in the industry so that we can have a profitable industry and activity at the end of that season. Mr. Speaker, sir, my emphasis and my short contribution will be on the environment and the marine environment. What happened in that sphere, Mr. Speaker, as Minister responsible for the blue economy, is something that is integral to the success of our country, is integral to the success of our world by extension. And I want to say that 2 or so years ago, we started the discussion about debt financial swap, using our interest saved on the debt to build out a marine spatial plan. A plan that would, of course, demarcate the ocean in a special way. Our exclusive economic zone, of course, where we will have certain areas demarcated and specified for certain activities in order to build out in a symbiotic way those areas of the sea. And what we said back then and what we have started with the process, the marine spatial plan process, that looked at the biodiversity, and this high-end biodiversity and medium biodiversity, and to be able to build out that biodiversity over the next couple of years, which will be the saving grace of our marine ecosystem. We said again that there must be certain areas allocated for this type of legislation, those in the game fishing industry, those in, of course, the jet ski, the pleasure operators, those that will operate in the recreational spaces, so that you won't have the incidents that the opposition leader spoke about happening, because although the area of the sea must be shared, we are equally saying that with good control and management, every single area can realize its true potential. We will be having, sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, areas that speak to resilience, which is by extension, mitigation, and adaptation. And you would have seen those structures in the ocean. Some call it breakwaters. Further ensure there are groins and revetment that control the wave activities, so that we can protect from erosion, beach erosions, and those types of incidents. Mr. Speaker, of course, there is the marketed areas for aquaculture and mariculture, so that we can have the sustainable development of our fisheries sector. And of course, there are areas for energy and energy potential. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, sir, the marine managed areas. Again, those areas that will ensure that our marine environment is protected and built out. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that with a holistic plan, because we don't operate in a siloed way as a government, it's quite the opposite. What happens in the ministry that is responsible for shipping international transport is in concert with this ministry. And so when the minister spoke about environment and marine environment protection, I just want to add my voice. I may not say elucidate, because he did a limpid explanation of those things that would affect the marine environment. We are very, very conscious, Mr. Speaker, sir, of ballast water and the effects of ballast water from our ships, whether there are those vessels that we consider domestic and small, or the larger vessels. And the ballast water, for those who are not aware in earshot of my voice, is the water that is responsible for keeping the balance of the boat. When this water is distributed after a voyage and exercise, it can distribute along the way viruses, invasive species, certain bacteria, and it is a consideration as it relates to the marine ecosystem. I am happy, Mr. Speaker, that the legislation would encompass proper management of that exercise, that ballast water, and how we treat the ballast water. Mr. Speaker, we are saying in a proper marine environment that antifoulants, those things that are used as part of the painting of the hulls, that those things will be controlled under this legislation, so that you won't have those biocides and different chemicals that can affect not only the fish population, but the reefs and our corals as well. And I'm happy to say that the legislation encompasses this part of it in terms of environmental pollution. The oil and chemical spills, the minister spoke about this, and how the legislation will ensure that there is regulation as it relates to how we dispose of our oils, and that there are mitigation measures in place for oil spills. And if it does happen, of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we have the solutions at our fingertips. Mr. Speaker, garbage and how we dispose of garbage is another concern. The record is there, the data is there to show that millions of tons of garbage enters the oceans every single year. Millions of tons. And those dioxin and microparticles from the breakdown of plastics, Mr. Speaker, if we are not protective and put legislation in place, gets into our palates at some point in time, because we are a fish-loving nation. And when the fish eat and consume those particles, inadvertently they enter our system, causing all types of hormonal and medical problems to our bodies. Mr. Speaker, it is good that the minister has sought to introduce that as a measure under this legislation. The way how we treat the noise pollution, because this is something that a lot of persons may not consider as essential as it relates to maritime protection and maritime environmental protection and the effects of our sea life. Persons may call it the sea fauna. But the dolphins, for instance, shellfish, turtles, seabirds, because seabirds make a big part of our marine space and our maritime ecosystem. How are these things affected by noise emitted from our ships? Mr. Speaker, if we do not control the effects of noise on our marine life, then we can have the migration of species, for instance. We can have the effects as it relates to breeding, because the noise can cause a lot of distortion in terms of species and species activity. And Mr. Speaker, sir, you can also have the noise affecting in a medical way. The mammals, dolphins, are known to operate in teams. And of course, this distortion can cause the disruption of families as it relates to those marine life. I am saying, Mr. Speaker, the turtles. Turtles are an endangered species. And I want to raise my voice today in earnest. And I'm telling all Barbadians, because this is not a conversation that will take place as a part of the CITES legislation in some other country, which is the Convention and the Trade of Endangered Species. It is not an international conversation for me. The conversation as it relates to how we treat our turtle, and the International Maritime Organization has specific laws as it relates not only to turtles, but the endangered species on the whole. I am saying that I do not need an international convention or treaty to be able to say to us that what we are doing with the destruction of our endangered species is wrong. I don't need that. I think that every right-thinking Barbadian, and I know that that is a wide percentage of the population, should understand the importance of preserving that which is endangered to us and our ecosystem. I really believe so. And it pains me when I see on social media, on Instagram, pictures of turtles being mutilated by persons in the most horrific way. It pains me, and I'm saying even the destruction of the eyes for endangered species. I don't know the last time we had a sighting of a green turtle. And I want to praise now Carla Daniel, of course, and those persons who work assiduously to ensure the protection of that species which is in the endangered list right now. I don't know the last time that we saw a green turtle on our shores. The migration of the species now, the migration has become so disoriented because of the way how we treated them in terms of the lighting, the noise that I just spoke to, the way how, and I want to appeal also to the pleasure craft operators, because we have a habit, because it's has now become part of our touristic exercise, to feed the turtles, to attract what we call an activity called swim with turtles, and they attract them by feeding them, and unfortunately we are feeding the turtles the wrong stuff. They become obese. And if obesity is a problem for us as human beings, imagine the turtles, who are much smaller than us. I am saying, Mr. Speaker, the hot dogs, stop giving them the hot dogs. And I call it lunch meat, stop giving them the lunch meat. And bread, a lot of bread. These things will make the turtles sick. And I think that if you should have a conversation, if you are into this industry, and this for the persons who are involved in this type of activities, you should have a conversation with Ms. Daniel and that group so you can get a diet that will be allowed for feeding the turtles. And if it is a diet similar to mine, you would understand the reason why you would give them carrots. You would understand why you would give them spinach and lettuce. You would understand why you would allow the turtles to have a natural vegetarian diet. Because all others will cause the turtles to become, in the words of the Member of Parliament for Christchurch East, obese and sick. And that is something that we don't want. So I'm appealing to those in that industry to have the conversation and find out what is the diet that is allowed for our marine species that is on the endangered list. And I am saying now to all Barbadians, when you destroy those eggs, killing one hatchling is one too many for me. One egg is one too many for me. And I'm saying that we have to put an abrupt halt on this type of behavior. There's legislation in place that will deal with it, but sometimes it's difficult to catch those culprits. It's easier, Mr. Speaker, to find persons on social media and all sorts of nefarious behavior, bringing all types of delusions, stories that are not true. The book of John 8 verses 44 said the devil is a liar. But they expose all types of things on the social media platform. But when it comes to shaming those persons who are involved in this type of activity, it is a no-no. I am saying it has to change. We will want to see those culprits not only who are involved in this brutality against the turtles, but the culprits who are littering in the sea. I would like to see them on social media, because this legislation takes into account the responsibility of those operating in the shipping industry, and especially when it comes to domestic shipping. But there's also legislation that will be responsible, because the minister spoke earlier, the member partner for St. Michael West Central spoke earlier about, and I should not forget West Central, because he operates in the Fulcrum of St. Michael, operates in the Ensemble of Christ Church. So there is a gamos there. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the legislation spoke that to the use of marine officers, the regulatory officers, marine police, they will work closely with the Coast Guard and those persons who are responsible for inspecting vessels, and to be able to stamp out a nefarious behavior. I am saying, Mr. Speaker, if we are serious about our ocean, if we are serious about our species and protection of our species and the environment at large, we must be embraced not only this legislation, but all other legislations that are in place to ensure the protection of the marine and the maritime environment. I, Mr. Speaker, am happy with the legislation. I am happy to say that with training, with the proper training, as it alluded to earlier, that this legislation is fit for purpose. It will allow the minister and those in the industry to sustain it, because one of the things about the success of any industry is to have partnerships, and to have partnerships with your constituents. I know the member of parliament for St. Michael West Central has a close association and partnership with his constituents. And I know by extension, he will see those in the industry as another constituent group. And he will have that same close association, because the only way we can have sustainable development in a true way, and in a meaningful way, is if there is partnerships. And I want to say that the conversation, as I see exposing the legislation about partnering with the players involved and having those conversations, those training models, that these things will help to build out, of course, the type of industry that the minister has as part of his vision. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that in terms of the economy, and another aspect is because we want to encourage, the same thing is going to happen in his sister industry, which I am in charge of, and that is the fishing industry. We are going now to transition to a greener industry. So the conversation must now be had with those in the industry, so we can have the alternatives. And we know that with the greening of not only the shipping industry, but the greening of the entire industry in Barbados, that we have a 2030 to 35 goal to have a fully green economy. With this noble goal in mind, the shipping industry and those in the fishing industry, of course, will have to have a Christian conversation about alternatives, abatement alternatives to the fossil fuel that we are using now, and the heavy fossil fuel that obviously emit not only carbon dioxide, but other harmful chemicals as well. We are going to transition eventually. This is not an overnight process, because there must be abatement technology available when we do it, either using the biofuels or the photovoltaics. And this is a conversation we will have with our fisher folk. It is not going to be one that is very acute. It's going to take a long period of time, and it's going to involve, as I said, having those partners with the players in the industry so we can have a transition, because this is the way we are going in terms of a green economy, whether it is in the maritime sphere or the hydrosphere, as you may call it, or the biosphere, the land in which we live. It must become part of who we are in terms of moving our country forward and to reduce our carbon dioxide footprint. It is known by research and data that about 3% of the carbon dioxide emitted in the world, that is about 40 or 50 billion tons a year, that about 3% comes from the whole shipping industry. Very small amount, just over 2 billion or so tons, but Mr. Speaker, it is too much. It is 2 billion or so tons too much. And we are saying that once we can do our part in reducing that carbon footprint, then we will be able to save the world, because the world right now, based on what we are seeing every day, is under severe threat as it relates to climate change. And the member of Parliament for St. Michael South spoke earlier about sargassums and the threats. We are seeing inundations like we have never seen before. And it is not only a threat to species, because sometimes fish and different things get trapped in the sargassum, but it is obviously a threat to those who operate in the same shipping sphere, was in the recreational industry, and those that operate in the fishing industry as a livelihood. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we work assiduously to remove it from our beaches. And I want to thank those workers today who work by the sweat expenditure to ensure that every time they come in, because unlike what videos, as I said, this social media and AI and all those things can create all sorts of fancy things. As much as persons may be sending around videos showing heavy equipment in other countries being used on the beach, I just expose the fact that the turtle and our animal life and our biodiversity on the beaches must be protected. We cannot, Mr. Speaker, and we will not be putting heavy equipment to destroy our marine life on the beach. I am saying to you, this ministry will not be responsible for killing one turtle or its eggs on the beach. We will do what we have been doing for the last 10 years with the sargassum. We will remove it manually, and we will put it in a safe place. We have done some research on it. Both the Eastern Caribbean, which is Barbados, Western Caribbean, which is Belize, and of course, Central Caribbean, Jamaica, on the constituents of seaweed. We have shown that it has certain than higher levels of cadmium, mercury, lead, and arsenic. And by that, Mr. Speaker, I made an appeal last year to farmers. I am thankful that they have acquiesced to that appeal by not removing the sargassum and be using it in the gardens, because inadvertently we eat the same fruits from the trees. So that was an appeal, and I'm thankful, Mr. Speaker, sir, that work persons were able to accede to that appeal, and I am not having a problem or issue with that concern anymore, Mr. Speaker, and they will continue. Let us in the ministry do that which we are supposed to be doing, using the experts, and I want to thank UNDP for allowing us to access some equipment. As you see in the pictures that were sent out recently, our conveyor belt is being used, and the harvester when the water is ideal to do, and we will be doing what we have to do to get the sargassum in a safe way away from our beaches. Mr. Speaker, I am happy for the legislation. I am thankful to be associated with this piece of legislation that will obviously bring some sustainability to the industry. It will allow those in the domestic space to have a tangible state. It will allow those in the shipping industry to have the registration that has always been a concern for us. It will allow the insurance companies to have faith in those in the industry, because there is no a construct for the domestic shipping industry. I am happy today, Mr. Speaker, sir, and on the cusp of World Ocean Day, I want to say to the minister, a job well done, because you have awakened new depths. Thank you, sir.
Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me also thank all honourable members who would have participated in today's debate. I think it's true to say that the debate heard from those who were experts, like the member who just took his seat, the member for Christchurch West Central, who I did forewarn the Parliament that when he speaks, he would go into matters that he's more of an expert in. I have also like to thank of course, the Leader of the Opposition. He spoke, he supported the bill, and also to indicate, obviously, our thanks to this member for St. Michael South, the member for St. Michael South Central, and of course, the member who just took his seat, the honourable member for Christchurch West Central. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, it has been a full debate in respect of the contributions, and what we have witnessed here today gives us even more confidence in the fact that we have support from both sides of the floor in respect of this bill, the Shipping Domestic Vessels suite of laws. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to wouldn't detain the House unduly, but I felt it was necessary to respond to the whole issue of policing at sea. I think Barbadians are well aware that there is a Coast Guard in operation in Barbados for many years, and there's also the Marine Division of the police service. And of course, these agencies work very closely together to ensure that our marine space is protected. But even beyond that, we also have those agencies working together to ensure that when persons operate craft, when they are at sea, that they don't pose any major or serious risks to life, and certainly to avoid collisions. I know the honourable member for Christchurch South spoke about the 1968, I believe, accident. But we've come a long way in terms of how we've been able to develop our security and obviously safeguarding the coastal areas of Barbados. So I thought I would respond to that. With respect to the, of course, additional staff will be required. I did indicate that when I presented the bill, that you will have some positions that are required once this is enacted. The ministry is working very closely with the Ministry of the Public Service to facilitate this, and we are sure that those additional staff, including, for example, safety officers and inspectors, will certainly be provision made for them, and we will have them to complement the work that we're doing. I must also inform the Honourable Chamber that the ministry has established an implementation committee to operationalize the domestic vessels legislation in preparation for its enactment, and that committee obviously comprises of representatives of the Barbados Defence Force, the Coast Guard Division, of course the Marine Police of the Barbados Police Service, Commerce, and of course officers from within the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport. And of course, until the ministry can perform the enforcement functions, we will obviously continue to work very closely with the Barbados Coast Guard and of course with the Marine Division as we seek, of the police, of course, as we seek to continue that very close working relationship. Enforcement of water sports operations is currently being done by the Barbados Coast Guard and Marine Police, as I indicated, on behalf of the ministry. I also want to make the point with respect to what we are about to be involved in respect of the suite of legislative arrangements that we have to bring to this House. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that I indicated that we brought the facilitation of maritime traffic bill to this Parliament. It was enacted, I believe, on the 24th of February. That is still with us. And to come, Mr. Speaker, as we continue to build out and modernize our maritime laws, we are going to be bringing very shortly to the Honourable House of Assembly the Marine Insurance Industry Act. That bill will come here, as well as the merchant shipping suite of legislation that is urgently required. The Seafarers suite of laws will also be coming to this chamber. In addition, we are going to be bringing the Seaport Industry Management Operations and Development Bill as well. So I just thought I will alert the Honourable Chamber that these are bills to come, and that the officers within the ministry, they're working very diligently in terms of engaging the work that so urgently requires to be done. Of course, as a country, of course, since international transport is twinned with tourism, it is important that we recognize the contribution, as I indicated earlier, of the economic value and economic contribution to Barbados of this ministry. And therefore, we cannot have one sector of the economy going in one direction, another sector going in the opposite. And therefore, we're harnessing the laws, we're doing what we have to do, because we understand that if we do not preserve the marine environment, we'll be faced with a lot of trouble down the road, and we don't wish to have that. Maritime safety and security, as I indicated in my opening remarks, is one of the facets that the IMO would hold dearly to their heart in respect of how we operationalize our activities in a very safe, secure manner, and that obviously will not allow us to in any way compromise the safety and security, and certainly to ensure that we are at all times compliant with the IMO standards. And that is what we're doing here with a series of bills to come to this House as we facilitate all the work that will be done by the Honourable Member for St. Michael South, who, when he served as Minister responsible for the blue economy, would have made all the preparatory work as we come forward. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to repeat it for the benefit of all, the shipping domestic vessels, bill does not apply to fishing vessels. I want to repeat myself on this because it has to be clearly understood. The fishing vessels will have their own suite of laws relating to the Sustainable Fisheries Management and Development legislation when the Minister, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central, when he introduces that into Parliament. I want to also remind the Chamber that we also have to bring the regulations will come. I did indicate that we have 7 subsidiary elements of the legislation to complete, including the small commercial vessels regulations, the pleasure vessels, the marine facilities, the moorings, the farms, the fees, and water sports that we have to bring. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't think it's necessary for me to go on and on. When I was closing off, when I started the second reading of the bill, I forget to, and the Honourable Member for Christchurch South did say it was a slip, to recognize the work of the Director of Maritime Affairs. I did ask her permission to call names, Ms. Najda King. She's not here with us today. She's on leave, and she couldn't be here, and she very much misses the opportunity to be here. Of course, she continues to give proper guidance to the ministry in respect of maritime affairs. And as I indicated then, it is a highly specialized area, and obviously her training along with the Chief Technical Office and others within the ministry do help us to take the legislation to the next level. So Barbadians certainly can be assured that within the ministry we have a core competent team, a team that understands the functioning of not only IMO standards, but what is required within the Barbadian context. And we will, as I indicated, be bringing, for example, the Marines emissions control suite of laws to this chamber very shortly. I know the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central raised that issue in his speech, and therefore he should be rest assured that that matter will very shortly be occupying the attention of the Cabinet and once approved in the chamber. So, Mr. Speaker, I'd like once again to thank all the officers who are here with us today, who would have worked on preparing the draft bill. and all the policy positions that inform the bill before us. And I really want to say to them and to thank them for a job well done, and to thank my colleagues, of course, for their contributions. Mr. Speaker, I beg that this bill be read a second time.
The question is that this bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I do now ask that you leave the chair and that the House resolves itself into the committee.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee. Further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is now in committee.
Mr. Chairman, may take the bill in parts.
That's okay.
Part 1, clauses 1 to 6.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that clauses 1 to 6 stand part.
The question is that clauses 1 to 6, part 1 stands part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 2, clauses 7 to 13. To 12, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 2, clauses 7 to 12 stand part.
Beg to second it.
The question is that part 2, clauses 7 to 12 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 3, clauses 13 to 26. Sorry, 28.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 3, clauses 13 to 28 stand part.
Beg to second it.
The question is that part 3, clauses 13 to 28 stand apart. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 4, sir, clauses 29 to 83.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 4, clauses 29 to 83 stand part.
Beg to second it.
The question is that part 4, clauses 29 to 83 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
That's clause. Members of one. 3. You first start.
At 15, 302 and 310. And 310, part 15.
He's on 50. 110.
That's the wrong thing. 302 and 310. So we're at part 5 here.
Part 5, sir. Clauses 84 to 114.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that part 5, clauses 84 to 114 stand part.
Beg to second.
The question is that part 5, clauses 84 to 114 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 6, clauses 115 to 164.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that Part 6, clauses 115 to 164 stand part.
Made a second.
The question is that Part 6, clauses 115 to 164 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 7, clauses 165 to 177.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that Part 7, clauses 165 to 177 stand part.
The question is Part 7, clauses 165 to 177 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 8, clauses 178 to 191.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that Part 8, clauses 178 to 191 stand part.
Make second.
The question is that Part 8, clauses 178 to 191 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 9, clauses 192 to 201.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that Part 9, clauses 192 to 201 stand part.
Made a second.
The question is that Part 9, clauses 192 to 201 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye.
Clauses 202 to 214.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that Parts 10, clauses 202 to 214 stand part.
Make second.
The question is that Part 10, clauses 202 to 214 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 11, clauses 215 to 246.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that Part 11, clauses 215 to 246 stand part.
Made a second.
The question is that Part 11, clauses 215 to 246 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 12, clauses 247 to 259.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that Part 12, clauses 247 to 259 stand part.
Made a second.
The question is that Part 12, clauses 247 to 259 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Honorable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 13, clauses 260 to 279.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that Part 16, clauses 260 to 279 stand part.
Made a second.
The question is that Part 16, Part 15, clauses 260 to 279 stand part. Part 13, sorry. The question is that Part 13, clauses 260 to 279 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 14, clauses 280 to 293.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that Part 14, clauses 280 to 293 stand part.
Made a second.
The question is that Part 14, clauses 280 to 293 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 15, clauses 294 to 310. 10.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that that there be an amendment to clauses 302, 2C, that we delete that clause. That is clause 302. We're deleting 2C. And also at clause 310, we wish to delete 310. So I beg to move that clauses 294 to 310 as amended and stand part.
Beg to second that.
The question is that part 15 clauses 204 to 310 as amended stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, we say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The first schedule.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the first schedule be the schedule to the bill.
The question is that the first schedule will be the first schedule of the bill. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, you say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Second schedule.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that the second schedule be the schedule to the bill.
The question is that the second schedule be the second schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Third schedule.
Mr. Chairman, I beg that the third schedule be the schedule to the bill.
The question is that the third schedule be the third schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, you say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I do now beg that you report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee as amended.
Beg second.
The question is that I do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill as amended in committee. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman of committee said reporting the passing of one bill in committee. All members for St. Michael West Central.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that this bill now be read a third time.
The question is that the bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I do know. I do beg, Mr. Speaker, I do ask that the bill be now passed and be so cited as the Shipping Domestic Vessels Act.
Okay, right.
Shipping Domestic Vessels Act. Yeah.
The question is that the bill be passed and so cited. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited.
Speaker, like to commit to papers.
Honorable member for Christchurch East.
Government notices.
Honorable member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Speaker, I'm commanded to give notice of a resolution that the Parliament of Barbados take note of the Barbados Population Policy 2023.
Adjournment, no?
Adjourn.
Who adjourning?
Mr. Speaker, with that, we have come to the end of the business for today. I beg to move the adjournment of the House until next Tuesday at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.
Is that
The date,
What's the date?
11.
11?
Tuesday the 11th, sir, at 10 a.m. in the forenoon, 11th of June.
The question is that this honorable chairman be adjourned until Tuesday, the 11th day of June, 2024 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 11th day of June, 2024 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.